The Obesity Code, by Fung, MD. Introduction. Have you ever wondered why there are doctors who are overweight? Think about that for a moment. These are people who have spent years, even decades, studying the intricate workings of the human body. They are disciplined, dedicated, and have access to all the same information we do, and more. They know the conventional wisdom by heart: eat less, move more. And yet, some of them struggle with their weight, just like millions of others. It's a paradox that bothered one doctor so much it changed the course of his career and led to a book that has quietly started a revolution. That doctor is Fung, a kidney specialist from Toronto, and his book, The Obesity Code, has sold millions of copies worldwide, not by offering a new fad, but by revealing a profound, and surprisingly simple, truth that has been hidden in plain sight. Drive. Fung didn't set out to be a weight loss guru. He spent his days treating the devastating end stage of a modern epidemic, kidney failure. And day after day, he saw the same pattern. The number one cause of the kidney failure he was treating was type 2 diabetes. And the root cause of that diabetes was almost always obesity. He was a doctor at the end of the line, treating the final, tragic symptoms of a disease that had started decades earlier. He realized he wasn't solving the problem, he was just managing the decay. This realization sparked a journey, a deep dive into the history and science of weight gain. What he uncovered was a startling deception, a 50-year-long mistake in our understanding of why we get fat. He discovered that the advice we've been given, the advice that even he used to give his patients, wasn't just ineffective, it was fundamentally wrong. In this journey together today, we are going to unlock the secrets that drive. Fung discovered. By the end of our time, you will understand the single most important hormonal key that controls your weight, a key that has nothing to do with counting calories. You will see why diet and exercise, as we've been taught to use them, are destined to fail for most people. And most importantly, you'll be given a new framework, a new hope, based on timeless wisdom and modern science, that can finally put you back in control. This isn't just about weight loss, it's about understanding your body in a way you never have before. Book summary. Let's begin with a story. In 1944, during the chaos of World War II, a scientist named Ansel Keys conducted a now famous experiment called the Minnesota Starvation Experiment. The goal was to understand the effects of starvation to better help the millions of people suffering in war-torn Europe. He recruited 36 healthy, young men who volunteered for the study. For 6 months, their daily calorie intake was cut in half, to around 1,500 calories a day, not unlike many modern diets. And, as you'd expect, they lost weight. But that's not the interesting part of the story. The interesting part is what happened to them. The men became utterly obsessed with food. They dreamt about it, read cookbooks for hours, and lost interest in everything else. But physically, their bodies began to shut down. They felt constantly cold, even in the middle of summer. Their strength dropped by 21%. Their heart rate slowed to a crawl. Their metabolism, the rate at which their bodies burned energy, plummeted by a staggering 40%. Think about what was happening. Their bodies were smart. In the face of drastically reduced energy coming in, the body did the only logical thing to ensure survival: it drastically reduced the energy going out. It was balancing its energy budget. But here is the most crucial part of the experiment. When the study ended and the men were allowed to eat normally again, they didn't just regain the weight they had lost. They gained back even more. Their bodies, having experienced a period of famine, were now desperately holding on to every calorie, storing it as fat in case of another emergency. This experiment, conducted over 70 years ago, revealed a fundamental truth that we have been ignoring ever since: our bodies do not passively respond to calorie cutting. They fight back. And this is the very first crack in the foundation of the eat less, move more philosophy. Drive. Jason Fung calls this the calorie deception, the idea that our body is a simple scale, where calories in, calories out equals body fat, seems so logical. But it's based on a series of false assumptions. The biggest one is that calories in and calories out are independent of each other. They are not. As the Minnesota experiment showed, if you drastically reduce your calories in, your body will automatically and dramatically reduce your calories out. Your metabolism slows, you feel tired, and you get cold. You aren't burning the same amount of energy anymore. This is why diets based purely on calorie restriction almost always fail. You lose some weight at first, but soon your body adapts. Your metabolism slows to match your new, lower intake. A weight loss plateau hits. And you feel miserable, hungry, and tired. Eventually, when you can't sustain it anymore and return to your old eating habits, your metabolism is still in that slowed down state. The weight comes rushing back, often with a few extra pounds for good measure. It's not a failure of your willpower. It's a predictable biological response. What about the other side of the equation? Move more. Surely, exercise is the key. We're told that we're fatter now because we're lazier than our ancestors. We drive instead of walk, and watch TV instead of working in the fields. It sounds reasonable, but the evidence just doesn't support it. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer tribes, like the Hadza in Tanzania, who live a physically demanding lifestyle, show that they burn roughly the same number of calories per day as a typical office worker in the United States or Europe. How is that possible? Their bodies have become incredibly efficient. The calories outside of the equation is far more complex than we think. Exercise is only a tiny fraction of our total energy expenditure, often less than 5%. The vast majority, over 95%, is used for our basal metabolic rate, all the background tasks like breathing, thinking, and keeping our hearts beating. When we exercise more, our body often compensates in two ways. First, it makes us hungrier, so we increase our calories in. They don't call it working up an appetite for nothing. Second, we might reduce our non-exercise activity. If you go for a long run in the morning, you might be more likely to take the elevator instead of the stairs later that day. The body cleverly maintains its energy balance. This is why large-scale studies show that increasing exercise has a surprisingly small effect on long-term weight loss. Exercise is incredibly good for your health for 1,000 other reasons, but it is not an effective tool for weight loss. As Drive. Fung puts it, diet is Batman, and exercise is Robin. Diet is doing 95% of the work. You simply can't outrun a bad diet. So, if eating less doesn't work, and moving more doesn't work, what are we missing? This brings us to the core idea of the Obesity Code. The problem isn't the number of calories we eat. The problem is what those calories are doing to our hormones. Obesity, drive, Fung argues, is not a caloric imbalance. It is a hormonal imbalance. And the master hormone in this story is insulin. We usually think of insulin in the context of diabetes. But insulin's primary job in the body is to be a storage hormone. When we eat, especially carbohydrates, our blood sugar rises. In response, our pancreas releases insulin. Insulin's job is to take that sugar out of the blood and move it into our cells for energy. But what happens when our cells are already full? Insulin helps store the excess energy. First, it stores it as glycogen in the liver, which is like a readily accessible refrigerator. But that refrigerator has limited space. Once it's full, insulin takes any extra energy and begins the process of creating new fat, a process called de novo lipogenesis. This new fat is stored in our fat cells, which are like a deep freezer with unlimited storage capacity. So, in simple terms, when insulin is high, we are in storage mode. We are building fat. When insulin is low, we are in burning mode. We are pulling energy out of storage and burning fat. This process is perfectly normal. It happens every day. We eat, insulin goes up, we store energy. We stop eating, insulin goes down, we burn energy. As long as the storing and burning phases are balanced, our weight remains stable. The problem of obesity, then, is a problem of too much insulin. Chronically high levels of insulin are constantly telling our body to store fat, store fat, store fat. It never gets this signal to burn fat. How do we know this is true? Drive. Fung presents the most straightforward proof imaginable. He says, I can make you fat. Actually, I can make anybody fat. How? By prescribing insulin. And he's right. Patients with type 1 diabetes, whose bodies don't produce insulin, will lose weight uncontrollably, no matter how much they eat. But when they are given insulin injections to survive, a very common side effect is significant weight gain. Similarly, in patients with type 2 diabetes, studies consistently show that the more insulin they are given to control their blood sugar, the more weight they gain. One study showed patients gaining an average of 19 pounds, even while they were cutting their daily calories by 300. It wasn't the calories driving their weight gain. It was the insulin. This reveals a fundamental misunderstanding in how we viewed obesity. We thought overeating caused us to get fat. But the hormonal perspective flips that around. Getting fat causes us to overeat. Think of it like a thermostat. Your body has a body set weight, a weight that it considers normal and wants to defend. High levels of insulin turn that thermostat up. When your thermostat is set to, say, 200 pounds, but your current weight is 180, your body thinks it's underweight. It will do everything in its power to get you back to 200 pounds. It will make you hungrier, so you eat more. And it will slow down your metabolism, so you burn less. This is why diets feel like a constant battle against your own body. You are fighting your thermostat. The only way to win in the long term is not to fight the system, but to change the setting on the thermostat. The question is not how to eat fewer calories. The question is, how do we lower our insulin? The first and most obvious answer is to reduce the foods that spike insulin the most. At the top of that list are refined carbohydrates and, especially, sugar. We've been warned about sugar for a long time, but the Obesity Code explains why it's uniquely dangerous. Table sugar, or sucrose, is made of two smaller sugar molecules, glucose and fructose. Glucose raises our blood sugar and triggers a direct insulin response. That's the part we know. The hidden danger is the fructose. Unlike glucose, which can be used by almost any cell in the body, fructose can only be processed by the liver. When we consume too much fructose, especially in concentrated forms like high fructose corn syrup in sodas and processed foods, it overwhelms the liver. The liver's response is to turn that fructose into fat. This leads to a condition called fatty liver. A fatty liver is like a suitcase that's already stuffed full. When the next meal comes along and insulin tries to push more energy into the liver resists. It's already full. The body's response to this resistance is to produce even more insulin to get the job done. This is the birth of insulin resistance. So, sugar delivers a 1-2 punch. The glucose spikes your insulin right away. The fructose, over time, creates insulin resistance in your liver, which leads to chronically higher insulin levels in the long run. It's not just the immediate effect, it's the long-term damage to the system. This also helps explain the paradox of traditional Asian diets. For generations, many Asian populations ate a diet high in white rice, a refined carbohydrate, but had very low rates of obesity. The key difference was that their intake of sugar and fructose was extremely low. Once sugar consumption began to rise in those countries, their rates of obesity and diabetes exploded. What about protein? The original Atkins diet suggested replacing carbs with fat and protein. But many people, afraid of fat, gravitated towards high-protein, low-fat diets of skinless chicken breasts and egg white omelets. The problem is, certain proteins, especially dairy and processed meats, can also stimulate a significant insulin response, sometimes as much as refined carbohydrates. This is due to hormones in our gut called incretins, which tell the pancreas to release insulin in anticipation of the food coming in. So, replacing insulin-spiking carbs with insulin-spiking proteins doesn't solve the core problem. Dietary fat, on the other hand, has the smallest effect on insulin levels. Natural, healthy fats are not the enemy we've been told they are. For 50 years, we were taught to fear fat, especially saturated fat, based on the now discredited diet heart hypothesis. But large-scale, modern studies have shown that there is no significant link between dietary saturated fat and heart disease. In fact, the low-fat craze led us to replace natural fats with highly processed vegetable oils and trans fats, which were far more harmful, and to fill the flavor gap with sugar and refined carbohydrates, the very things that were driving up our insulin. So, the first step to lowering insulin is changing what you eat. Reduce added sugars and refined grains. Moderate your protein intake. And don't be afraid of natural, healthy fats. Eat real, unprocessed foods. The toxicity isn't in the carbohydrate, protein, or fat itself, it's in the processing. But this is only half the battle. This is the part that helps you lose weight in the short term. The long-term problem, the reason Oprah regained the weight, the reason most diets fail, is insulin resistance. So how do you break the cycle of insulin resistance? Resistance, in any biological system, is caused by two things: high levels and constant exposure. Think of antibiotic resistance. If you constantly expose bacteria to an antibiotic, they develop resistance. The same is true for insulin. If your insulin levels are always high, your body will become resistant. Changing what you eat helps with the high levels. But what about the constant exposure? This brings us to the forgotten half of the equation: when you eat. In the 1960s, before the obesity epidemic really took off, most people ate 3 meals a day. No snacks. This meant there were natural, daily periods where insulin levels would fall very low, especially overnight. These low insulin periods were crucial because they prevented the development of insulin resistance. But starting in the 1970s, nutritional authorities began to tell us that snacking was good for us. That eating 5 or 6 small meals a day would stoke our metabolism. This was a catastrophic mistake. From 1977 to 2003, the average number of times Americans ate per day went from 3 to almost 6. We started eating from the moment we woke up to the moment we went to sleep. The result? Our insulin levels never had a chance to come down. We were in fat storage mode all day long. This constant, high-level exposure to insulin is the perfect recipe for creating severe insulin resistance. The solution, then, is devastatingly simple. To break the cycle of insulin resistance, you must create periods where your insulin is very low. And if all foods raise insulin, even a little, the only way to get your insulin truly low is to not eat at all. The answer is fasting. Now, this isn't about starvation. Starvation is involuntary and uncontrolled. Fasting is the voluntary, controlled abstinence from food for health or spiritual reasons. And it is one of the oldest and most powerful healing traditions in human history. When you fast, your body simply switches its fuel source. Instead of burning energy from the food you just ate, it starts burning the stored food energy you've been carrying around on your body, your fat. Drive. Fung addresses all the myths we've heard about fasting. Will it burn your muscle? No. The body is not that stupid. It stores energy as fat for a reason. It will burn through that fat before it starts breaking down functional tissue. Studies show that growth hormone levels actually increase during fasting, which helps preserve lean muscle mass. Will fasting put you into starvation mode and wreck your metabolism? No. In fact, the opposite happens. Studies show that during short-term fasts, metabolism doesn't go down, it goes up. Your body releases adrenaline, giving you more energy, presumably to go out and find food. This is in stark contrast to the metabolic slowdown caused by chronic calorie restriction. Intermittent fasting, creating regular, consistent periods of not eating, is the tool that directly attacks insulin resistance. It breaks the cycle. It gives your body a rest from the constant demand to produce insulin. It allows your insulin levels to fall, which in turn improves your insulin sensitivity. And when your insulin levels finally come down, your body's set weight, your thermostat, can finally be set lower. This is the missing piece of the puzzle. It explains why all diets seem to work at first, and then fail. They address what to eat, but they completely ignore when to eat. By combining both, eating a diet of real, unprocessed foods and incorporating intermittent fasting, you can address both the high insulin levels and the underlying insulin resistance. You are finally treating the whole disease. The Obesity Code is not a diet book. It is a framework for understanding. It tells us that our bodies are not simple machines, but complex, self-regulating systems. It frees us from the tyranny of calorie counting and the guilt of failed willpower. It shows us that the power to regain our health lies not in some new, magic pill, but in an ancient wisdom that has been with us all along. Eat real food. And give your body a chance to rest. Commentary. What I find so powerful about Drive. Fung's work in the Obesity Code is that it shifts the entire conversation around weight. For decades, we've treated obesity as a character failing, a problem of gluttony and sloth. The advice to eat less, move more carries an implicit judgment. If you're not losing weight, you're just not trying hard enough. This book dismantles that entire framework. It reframes obesity not as a personal failure, but as a hormonal dysregulation. Your body isn't broken, it's just following a set of hormonal signals that are set too high. This is an incredibly empowering message. It means that the struggle is not your fault. You're not fighting a lack of willpower, you're fighting your own biology, which has been hijacked by a modern food environment and misguided advice. Understanding that insulin is the thermostat that controls your body's set weight gives you a clear target. The goal is no longer the vague and frustrating task of eating less. The goal is clear and specific: lower your insulin. And the book provides a two-pronged approach to do just that, which is what makes it so complete. First, change what you eat. Move away from the processed foods, the sugars, and the refined grains that are constantly spiking your insulin. This is the advice that many diets share, and it's a crucial first step. But the second part is the real game changer: change when you eat. The introduction of intermittent fasting as a therapeutic tool is what elevates this book beyond a simple diet plan. It addresses the root problem of insulin resistance, the very thing that makes long-term weight loss feel impossible. By intentionally creating periods of low insulin, we give our body the chance to reset and regain its sensitivity. It's not about constant deprivation, it's about creating a natural rhythm of feasting and fasting, something our ancestors did for millennia. Life is meant to be celebrated with food, but those celebrations must be balanced with periods of rest. So, what can you do with this information today? You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. Start small. Here are 2 simple actions you can take this week. First, focus on what you drink. For the next 7 days, make a conscious effort to eliminate all sugar-sweetened beverages. No sodas, no sweetened teas, no fruit juices. Replace them with water, sparkling water, or unsweetened tea and coffee. This one change can dramatically reduce your sugar and fructose intake and begin to lower the insulin load on your body. Second, experiment with timing. You don't have to jump into a multi-day fast. Just try to extend your natural overnight fast by 1 hour. If you normally eat breakfast at 7 a.m., try waiting until 8 a.m. If you can do that comfortably, maybe try 9 a.m. the next day. This simple act of creating a slightly longer period without eating is a gentle first step toward reintroducing your body to the fat-burning state of low insulin. That's the beauty of the Obesity Code. It provides a powerful, unifying theory, but its application can be as simple or as comprehensive as you need it to be. It's about understanding the why behind the weight, and then using that knowledge to make smart, sustainable changes. That was a summary of the Obesity Code by Jason Fung. We've journeyed through the core principles today, but I want to be honest with you. A summary can give you the map, but it can't replace the experience of the journey itself. The real power of this book is in the way drive. Fung connects the dots, the way one idea builds upon the next, until the whole picture becomes clear. This summary is your guide to decide if this book deserves a place in your life. If the ideas we've explored today, that weight is hormonal, not caloric, and that timing is as important as ingredients, have sparked something in you, then I truly encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning facts, it's about fundamentally changing how you see your own body and the food you put into it. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this exploration valuable, it would mean the world to me if you would like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive into another transformative book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's continue this journey of learning and growing together.